TheBradRules!
Pokemon FireRed and Leaf Green were games I passed on back in the day, feeling they were unnecessary for me to play. I figured that having played through Red, Blue, and Yellow countless times, buying and playing what was basically the same game again just wasn't worth it. But I come before you today in 2025 to admit just how wrong I was. These games are remakes of the Gen 1 games, and man, did they receive a major graphical overhaul. These games basically look like Ruby and Sapphire, and it's a good look without a doubt. Gen 3 was such a jump up visually for Pokemon on the handhelds because it was finally leaving behind the Game Boy and Game Boy Color for the much more powerful Game Boy Advance. My Pokemon journey ended for quite some time after Gen 3, even though Gen 3 was amazing with me enjoying Pokemon Sapphire to the point where I did something rare and actually leveled my team up to level 100. Also, Pokemon Colosseum and Gale of Darkness were extremely satisfying experiences on the GameCube. It was just that time in my life following this where it was time to take a break from Pokemon, and I would later return to it full force when I got caught up in the Pokemon Go craze, which made me buy a 3DS and play through all the games I missed. However, while I might have been all caught up, I was missing out on one key game still, to either experience Fire Red or Leaf Green. So I finally decided to dive in and see what I had been missing. It seems absolutely ludicrous that I would wait this long to play a glow-up of my favorite games of all time. So I chose Fire Red because I always favored the red version more than blue or even yellow, and I was pulled in immediately. This is Gen 1 through and through, but it looks so gorgeous. Not to say that the original Gen 1 games didn't look good, but I still think those games did so well with their limitations and delivered a charming presentation and atmosphere that still holds up in my eyes. But let's face it, these remakes take the sprite art and elevate it. The sprites are more detailed, there's actually full bold color, unlike the Game Boy Color, which never could deliver a satisfying quality of color. The environments and towns look so detailed now. The buildings look much more detailed, and look at those trees. Look at Viridian Forest, for example. This place now looks lush and mesmerizing. It creates the look and feel that Game Freak probably wanted from the very start. The Pokemon sprites look so good. I mean, these are some of the best I've seen of these guys front and back. Although it would be nice if I could see a bit more of my Kingler, besides his big-ass claw. The sprites of the human characters look really nice too. It's really cool to see the Team Rocket members' uniforms bearing the R's on their shirts and being able to make out the type of clothing the NPCs are wearing. And it's just a joy to roam about, just as it was in the original games. I mean, these are some of the best towns in a video game, and now they have so much more personality and variety in terms of building and decor. Places like Saffron and Celadon City really come alive and really feel even more like the big lavish cities they're meant to convey. Places like the Pokemon Mansion on Cinnabar and Silphco also benefit quite a bit by being more fleshed out visually and look more like the locations they're trying to be. Another nice touch was adding snow to the inside of the Seafoam Islands to be more fitting for it being the home to Articuno, instead of it being a regular looking cave with water in it. After all, Articuno is an ice type, not a water type, so having some frosty snow definitely helps convey that Articuno would like being in a place like this. One of my favorite things added to this game is the running shoes. These babies are a godsend. Running was a concept introduced in Ruby and Sapphire to finally get you moving faster around the map without the need for the bike. Plus, you couldn't even use the bike in caves in Gen 1 and 2. Now you can, and I never cared much for the bike, and couldn't be bothered to go into the menu and select it. I wasn't tortured by mostly walking around like some other players, but now that there's the option to run, by golly, I'm running. Now, what was changed since Gen 1, and are there any improvements? Well, the special attack and special defense stat split is carried over, but the physical and special attack split was still one generation away, as that started in Gen 4. There's also a ton of moves that have been added to each Pokemon's move set, which is really cool because you get moves from both Gen 2 and 3, and the TMs that go along with it. You'll even run into certain NPCs who will teach you moves for free. One of my favorite instances of this is right after getting out of Mount Moon, you'll run into these two martial artists who will give you a choice of learning Mega Punch or Mega Kick. So I actually taught my Pikachu Mega Kick, which has an attack with 120 attack points. They even sprinkled a few double battles in that were introduced in Ruby and Sapphire, but they are in very short supply. You'll also see a decent amount of dialogue tweaks, like the old man who is outside of the Celadon gym no longer remarks on how it's full of girls but women, and the gambler trainers are now gamers, which is pretty lame. I mean, come on. That's not promoting gambling by having a trainer named that, and the Game Corner, which is a slot machine-filled casino, is still in the game. What do you call this? Gaming? No, it's gambling! This modernizing of games in remakes really bugs me. Like, I get the guy outside the gym thing being a little bit questionable. You probably don't want your game hinting at the dreaded P word, but everything else meant to be more family friendly is just lame. The game plays out pretty much identically to how the originals did. You play as Red and you'll go from town to town, route to route, and from cave to cave, catching Pokemon, battling trainers, and winning gym badges as you thwart the evil plots of Team Rocket and ultimately challenge the Elite Four to become champion. And for anyone curious, my team for this run of FireRed was Charizard, Kadabra, Kingler, Snorlax, Raichu, and Butterfree, and I was quite pleased with all of my choices. Anyway, as far as big changes I saw to the main progression is the thirsty guards blocking the entrances to Saffron City now need to be given a special tea that is given to you by an NPC in Celadon Mansion instead of just giving them a drink from the Celadon department store's vending machines. Other than that, all the NPCs that give you story progression items in the originals give you the same items in these remakes. So Mr. Fuji still gives you the Poke Flute, and the Safari Zone Warden still gives you the Strength HM. Some of the gym leaders will give you different TMs though. One of my favorite new items is the Versus Seeker, which is so cool. You can actually use this device to see which trainers who you've previously battled want a rematch. In the original games, once you battle the trainer, you can never battle them again. But now if you use the Versus Seeker while they're on screen and they raise their hand, you can speak to them for a rematch. This makes gaining experience points much easier, and you'll no longer have to rely on battling wild Pokemon to grind up your Pokemon's levels to beat the Elite Four. And say you wanted to level up after beating the Elite Four in the originals. Well, your only option in the way of trainers was to re-challenge the Elite Four. So now with the Versus Seeker, this problem is eliminated, and it's a fantastic change. And your bag for carrying items is so much more improved than in the original games, which only let you carry a total of 20 unique items, which is extremely tiny considering the amount of items you'll find and want to buy. In Gen 2, the bag was split up into categories to alleviate the space issues. And in Ruby and Sapphire, it was much of the same. But in these remakes, your bag is massive, letting you carry up to 42 items in the general section of the bag, which is much appreciated. and certainly what I would consider to be a quality of life improvement. It was very frustrating to be navigating around, and when you discover an item, only to find out your bag is full, and although you can stuff your unused items in the PC at the Pokemon centers, that's very inconvenient, and most of the time, I'll choose to just drop an item to make room instead, and that's no longer a problem with these remakes. One thing I found pretty frustrating is the lack of held items being found through normal progression and found items. Most of them are found at the game corner, which I found to be a very frustrating way of dealing with these items. I mean, come on. First you make the evolution stones a bitch to get in Gen 2, while they were very easy to get in Gen 1, and now held items which were easy to obtain in Gen 2 are now locked behind this stupid paywall in these remakes. I don't want to play the slots. I shouldn't have to be forced to play some mini-game that has nothing to do with the main gameplay to get these items that were fun to come across in Gen 2. Another new addition that I really like is the trainers' teams on Victory Road. They've actually given these trainers all new teams. They've completely overhauled them to make them seem like they're deserving of competing against the Elite Four. This made this area of the game so much more challenging than it was in the original games, and this is a change that I really appreciated. This is a late game challenge that really deserved to have a bit of an overhaul, because really nobody was too challenging in the original games. But now these trainers will actually give you a run for your money. The really big change is the post-game content in the Sevi Islands. Actually, you get to visit 3 of the islands after beating Blame. This is absolutely tremendous. In the original games, the only thing that you get beating the main game is to access Cerulean Cave to catch Mewtwo, which you can still do in the remakes. And when comparing this to Gen 2 and its extensive post-game, which lets you access Kanto, it really paled in comparison. So now with the Sevi Islands, you'll get extra objectives, new trainers to battle, a new plot involving Team Rocket, and access to Gen 2 Pokemon. They even gave the bikers a new purpose by having them harass the residents of Island 3, which is pretty cool, giving these minor characters that are best known for their presence on Cycling Road more to do. There's even a reference to Hypno's Pokédex entry, as a Hypno is stalking a little girl you're tasked with finding in a forest, and this no doubt inspired that classic creepypasta, Hypno's Lullaby. They even took Moltres from Victory Road, and he's no longer just standing around in a setting that's not really fitting. Instead, they placed him in one of the Sevi Island's new locations, Mount Ember, an active volcano, which is far more fitting. So now all the legendary birds have fitting locations, just like the change that was made to the Seafoam Islands to benefit the Articuno encounter. Zapdos is already in the power plant, so no change was needed because this was already the perfect place to house him. The OST is tremendous. I mean, it's the Gen 1 OST, which is one of the best soundtracks of all time. However, these tracks have, of course, been redone, and they're using the Ruby and Sapphire style of instrumentation, which sounds really good. Some of these tracks are better, like Cinnabar Island, which just sounds more regal and extravagant. But I prefer some of the original tracks, such as Mount Moon, which sounds more mysterious in its original 8-bit form, and the melody just sounds better. Overall, I greatly enjoyed playing through FireRed, and feel it's a very loyal but good remake. I've played through Gen 1 a lot, but it was a joy to come back and experience it with the new coat of paint, and see all the new additions both visually and mechanically. And the fun Sevi Islands content is exactly what this game needed. If you ever felt turned off by Gen 1 by feeling they were graphically outdated, or one of those people that hated the fact that there was no special attack and defense split, FireRed and Leaf Green are the perfect reasons to finally check out Gen 1. I would highly recommend them. So guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Have you ever played Fire Red or Leaf Green? Were you like me at one time and you felt like these were not worth playing because you had already played Red, Blue, and Yellow? I'd love to know, so let's discuss it down below, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bells to get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my subscribers for your continued support. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.